In the grand scheme of cosmic evolutionary lottery, humans drew what most sentient species consider the short straw. Not that they would ever admit it, no, quite the opposite. Humans wear their evolutionary trauma like badges of honor, completely oblivious to how utterly terrifying this makes them to the rest of the galactic community. Take Dr. Eliza Winter, who currently poured herself a mug of plant toxin stimulant while a 700-pound apex predator snoozed contentedly at her feet. The universe contained approximately 3 trillion known sentient species, and precisely one of them would consider this arrangement reasonable. "Morning, Brutus," she mumbled to the Siberian tiger sprawled across her kitchen floor. The beast yawned, displaying teeth evolved specifically to puncture cervical vertebrae. The creature had wandered onto her property 6 standard months ago, wounded from a territorial dispute. Rather than doing what any rational being would do, which was to evacuate the premises immediately and call for military support, Dr. Winter had treated its wounds, fed its synthetic protein, and apparently earned its loyalty through this bewildering display of medical intervention. Now the predator simply lived there, with her, by choice. Across 16 galaxies, evolutionary biologists were still arguing about what kind of hellscape must have forged humans into creatures who looked at apex predators and thought, "I will heal this and make it my companion." "You look like you had a rough night," Specialist NX Volcori observed from the doorway, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the morning light. As the Vulcan Embassy's cultural attaché, he'd been assigned to study primitive human social structures. He'd been expecting tribal councils, or perhaps rudimentary democratic assemblies. Instead, he'd found himself documenting whatever madness was unfolding in Dr. Winter's rural Montana household. Brutus was restless. "Something in the woods had him spooked," Eliza replied, sliding a second mug toward her alien guest. The Valkeen couldn't actually consume human beverages, but he appreciated the ritual. "Perhaps another territorial predator?" "No," Eliza shook her head. "Different kind of nervous, like when those poachers were on the property last year." NX Valcori's dorsal plates lifted slightly, the Valkeen equivalent of raised eyebrows. "You believe someone was trespassing?" "Brutus thinks so. That's good enough for me." The alien struggled not to emit distress pheromones. This casual declaration, trusting the instincts of an obligate carnivore whose ancestors had undoubtedly hunted proto-humans, was precisely the kind of response that made his reports read like fiction back at Central Command. Brutus suddenly lifted his massive head, ears perked forward. A low rumble emerged from his chest. Dr. Winter calmly set down her mug. "We have company." Before Nex Valcori could suggest calling the authorities, a military-grade transport ship materialized over the tree line and descended toward the clearing in front of the cabin. "Expecting visitors?" the Valkeen asked. "Not particularly," Eliza replied, scratching Brutus behind the ears. "But they're right on time." The ship's design was unmistakably Centaurian, sleek, efficient, and typically reserved for diplomatic missions or high-level military operations. What such a vessel was doing, landing in rural Montana, was a question that made Nex Valcori reconsider his career choices. The hatch opened, and 3 figures descended. 2 standard Centaurian guards, flanking what appeared to be a high-ranking official. "Dr. Winter," the central figure called out. "I apologize for the intrusion. I am Commander Thnox of the Centaurian Defense Coalition. We require your expertise." Eliza stepped onto the porch, Brutus padding silently behind her. The Centaurian guards visibly tensed at the sight of the tiger, their hands drifting toward their weapons. "I'd advise against that," Eliza said mildly. "Brutus doesn't like guns." "Please, control your domestic animal," Commander Thnox requested, clearly struggling with the concept. "He's not domestic, he's wild, he just chooses to stay." This distinction, seemingly trivial to Dr. Winter, represented an entire dissertation's worth of incomprehensible human psychology to the gathered aliens. What does the Coalition want with a xenoanthropologist? Eliza crossed her arms. Last I checked, my security clearance was revoked after the Proxima incident. Commander Tharnox's facial tentacles twitched uncomfortably. The situation has changed. We've discovered something on the outer rim that matches your unique expertise, which is understanding how predatory species think. Eliza glanced down at Brutus, then back at the commander. And what species would that be? Yours, the commander replied. A slow smile spread across Eliza's face. Well, that's different. You'd better come in. Vix Volkori, put on another pot of coffee. Looks like we're going to need it. Nex Volkori hesitated by the doorway, watching as the tiger, Brutus, assessed each newcomer with unnervingly intelligent eyes. The beast wasn't restrained. It wore no control collar, no neural inhibitor. It was simply there, free to act according to its nature, yet apparently choosing cooperation, much like the human herself. Perhaps, the Valkene thought as he prepared the stimulant beverage, humans weren't the evolutionary losers of the galactic community. Perhaps they were something far more disconcerting. They were the ones who had looked at their planet's deadliest inhabitants and decided that, rather than terraform the threat away, they would simply befriend it. And somehow, incomprehensibly, it worked. Commander Thanox sat as far from Brutus as the modest living room would allow, while his guards remained standing. Tactical positions that wouldn't have fooled a child, let alone a predator with millions of years of ambush experience. The tiger observed them with the casual disdain of a creature that knew it could end lives before hearts completed their next beat. Here's what we know, Thanox began, activating a holographic projection. 3 cycles ago, an unmanned research vessel detected unusual energy signatures from this region. The image showed a spiral arm at the galaxy's edge, pulsing with anomalous readings. We sent a scout team. Contact was lost within hours. I sent another team, Eliza surmised. Correct. A fully armed reconnaissance unit. They reported finding the first team's ship. Empty, powered down, no signs of struggle. And then they disappeared too. Not exactly. The Gnote's tentacles coiled tight, a sign of extreme discomfort. They transmitted one final message. Just 3 words. Humans were here. The room fell silent. Even Brutus seemed to sense the shift in atmosphere, his tail twitching once before going still. That's impossible, Enex Valkori finally said. That sector hasn't been mapped for colonization. No settlement permits have been issued. Precisely our concern, replied Tharnox. Either someone is impersonating humans, which has troubling implications, or humans have managed to establish presence beyond regulated space, which has equally troubling implications. Eliza leaned forward. And you want me because you understand how humans think. More importantly, you understand how they hunt. A laugh escaped her. Sharp, unexpected. You think humans are hunting your teams? I think something is. And if that something has human characteristics, then you're our best consultant. Enex Valkori shifted uncomfortably. Commander, surely you're not suggesting humans have reverted to predatory behavior? The accords of peaceful integration clearly— With respect, Specialist, Thanox interrupted, your cultural attaché platitudes mean nothing if there's a rogue human operation capturing Coalition personnel. Brutus growled, a rumble so deep it vibrated the floorboards. Everyone except Eliza tensed. Doesn't like your tone, she explained calmly. Neither do I. The commander's guards reached for their weapons, but Eliza held up her hand. Bad idea. Brutus can cross this room in under a second. You'd get 1 shot off at best. Then you'd have an angry tiger and an equally angry human to deal with. Are you threatening a coalition commander? The Nox asked, voice dangerously quiet. No, just explaining the tactical situation. Eliza sipped her coffee. Now, tell me why I should help you. Because if humans are responsible, the diplomatic fallout could trigger restrictions on all human travel and research, including mine. Eliza nodded. Fair point. But I have conditions. The commander's tentacles flexed. Reluctant agreement. Name them. Brutus comes with me. Nox blinked all four eyes in rapid succession. That is completely non-negotiable, Eliza finished. He's an excellent judge of character and an even better early warning system. Plus, he's got better senses than any of your scanning equipment. It's a wild animal. Just like me, Eliza grinned. Deathworld natives, remember? Where I go, he goes. Next, Valkyrie cleared his throat. Commander, if I may, Dr. Winter has established an unusual but effective symbiotic relationship with this predator. My research suggests their combined capabilities might prove valuable in understanding what happened to your teams. The commander stared first at the Valkeen, then at the human, then finally at the massive tiger, now yawning with deliberate nonchalance. Fine, Thax conceded. But if that creature damages my ship or personnel, Eliza assured him, unless you give him reason to. The Centaurian guards exchanged alarmed glances. My second condition, Eliza continued, is that NX Valkyrie joins us. His observational skills are exceptional, and I trust him. The specialist's crystalline exoskeleton flushed with biochemical surprise. Dr. Winter, I'm not trained for field missions. Neither am I, technically. But you've been studying human behavior for months. Now you'll get to see it in action, under stress conditions. Think of the research paper possibilities. Academic ambition warred visibly with self-preservation instinct on the Valkeen's features. Very well, Thathanix said before ex-Valkyrie could object further. Both conditions accepted. We depart immediately. He stood careful to maintain distance from Brutus. Dr. Winter, pack what you need. The journey to the Outer Rim takes approximately 7 standard days. After the commander and his guards retreated to the ship, Valkyrie turned to Eliza. You manipulated me using academic incentives. Did it work? Obviously, Valkeen admitted. But I fail to understand your insistence on bringing a dangerous predator into potentially hostile territory. Eliza knelt beside Brutus, running her hand through his thick fur. Humans don't think like you do, NX Valkyrie. We evolved on a planet where we were prey before we were predators. We learned to survive by making alliances, even with the things that used to hunt us. But why take the risk? Because sometimes, she said, meeting the tiger's amber gaze, you need a monster of your own when you're walking into the dark. The Valkeen considered this. And what if whatever we find out there is worse than what we bring with us? Eliza's smile contained nothing of warmth or humor, just the ancient, predatory certainty that had carried her species from frightened tree-dwellers to galactic powers. Then they'll wish we'd brought more tigers. The Coalition vessel carved through space like a surgical instrument, precise, economical, and utterly devoid of aesthetic consideration. For 7 days, Eliza had endured the sterile efficiency of Centaurian design while preventing her tiger from eating anyone who looked at her sideways. The ship hummed with barely contained anxiety, most of it directed at the presence of a fully conscious apex predator prowling the corridors. Approaching designated coordinates, announced the navigation officer, her voice betraying nothing of the apprehension shared by every crew member except the human and her inexplicable companion. Eliza stood at the viewport, Brutus lounging at her side. The beast had adapted to zero-gravity transitions with disturbing ease. Yet another reminder that Earth predators possessed adaptability that most species found unnatural. During the journey, several junior officers had filed formal complaints about the unrestrained biological hazard on board. Commander Thanox had dismissed these concerns with bureaucratic efficiency, though his personal quarters remained sealed with additional security protocols whenever the Tiger passed nearby. "What do you see?" Nex Valkori asked, joining her by the transparent barrier. His exoskeleton had taken on a duller hue during their journey, a stress response she'd noted whenever the Valkeen contemplated their destination. "Nothing yet," she replied, "but something's out there. Brutus has been restless since we entered this system." The Tiger's ears were indeed forward, his posture alert despite his seemingly relaxed position. 700 pounds of terrestrial predator, sensing something amiss in the vacuum of space. It defied conventional understanding, yet Eliza accepted it without question. Commander Thanox approached, maintaining his customary distance from Brutus. "We've located the missing vessels. They appear intact, orbiting that planetoid." He indicated a rocky mass barely visible against the star field. "No life signs detected." "You're scanning for Centaurian life signs," Eliza noted. "What about human biosignatures?" The commander's tentacles twisted. "Our equipment is calibrated for all council species, humans included." "And what about non-council species?" Silence descended over the bridge. The implication hung heavy. Something beyond their collective knowledge might be responsible. "Prepare a boarding team," Fnaps ordered. "Dr. Winter, I expect your insights. The animal stays aboard." Brutus growled, a sound that shouldn't have carried the weight it did in the controlled atmosphere of the bridge. "Goes where I go," Eliza reminded him, "unless you want to try explaining to 700 pounds of apex predator why his hunting partner is leaving without him." The commander's facial ridges darkened with what might have been Centaurian frustration. "This is unprecedented." "So is losing 2 teams with no explanation," she countered. "Unprecedented calls for unprecedented measures." A junior communications officer leaned toward her superior, voice lowered but still audible to Eliza's heightened senses. "Is this normal human behavior? Forming symbiotic bonds with obligate carnivores?" "There's nothing normal about humans," came the muttered response. "Their planet tried to kill them so many ways, they started thinking death was negotiable." Nex Valkori's crystalline structure shimmered slightly, his species equivalent of clearing a throat. "I should point out that the relationship between Dr. Winter and her companion represents a fascinating evolutionary adaptation. Humans domesticated various predator species as a survival strategy, turning potential threats into protective assets. We didn't domesticate anything," Eliza corrected. "Domestication implies one-sided control. What we did was forge mutually beneficial partnerships. His creatures designed by evolution to consume your flesh," the commander observed dryly. "The best allies are the ones who could destroy you but choose not to," Eliza replied, with a smile that made several officers step back involuntarily. Nox's tentacles writhed in what xenolinguists had categorized as the Centaurian expression for resigned exasperation. "Engineering. Fabricate an environmental suit for the Earth predator. Tactical team, adjust your mission parameters to accommodate our augmented boarding party." 30 minutes later, Eliza found herself in the shuttle bay, encased in an environmental suit tailored to her human proportions. Beside her, Brutus moved with surprising grace in his custom-designed protective gear, a marvel of engineering that had required 3 sleepless nights from the ship's fabrication team. The Tiger's suit featured reinforced transparent material around his head, sensory enhancement modules that allowed him to maintain his olfactory awareness despite the sealed environment, and articulated joint protections that accommodated his natural movement patterns. The lead engineer had surrendered his meal privileges for a week to secure additional material allowances for the project. "Atmosphere stable, but thin," reported the Coalition security officer leading their group. "Gravity at 60% standard, temperature fluctuations minimal." The boarding team consisted of 6 individuals: Eliza, Brutus, ex-Falcori, 3 Centaurian security specialists, and a technical officer responsible for data retrieval. Commander Thanox had elected to remain aboard the main vessel, citing protocols that prevented command-level officers from participating in initial boarding operations of abandoned ships. "Convenient," Eliza had remarked when informed of this decision. Thanox had pretended not to hear. The shuttle journey took 17 minutes. 17 minutes of vacuum-muffled silence, broken only by the occasional status update from the pilot and the rhythmic breathing of Brutus through his suit's audio system. Ex-Falcori used the time to calibrate his extensive array of recording devices, determined to document every aspect of what would surely become a landmark xenological case study. "Approaching primary docking port," announced the pilot. "Scans indicate standard lock mechanism still operational." The shuttle shuddered slightly as magnetic clamps engaged with the derelict vessel. Airlock sequences initiated automatically, a reassuring indication that at least some systems remained functional. "Docking complete. Environmental harmonization in progress." Eliza activated her suit's external speakers. "NX Valkyrie, stay close. Brutus, scout." The Tiger moved ahead with silent purpose, his movements fluid despite the environmental constraints. The Valkene researcher followed Eliza, recording devices capturing everything. The airlock cycled open, revealing the abandoned ship's entry corridor. Emergency lighting cast deep shadows across utilitarian design elements, standard Centaurian military architecture, functional without flourish. Brutus stepped through first, each movement deliberate, calculated, his enhanced senses processing information beyond what technology could detect. "Life support functional," confirmed the technical officer. "Oxygen levels acceptable for brief exposure, but recommend maintaining sealed environments until full toxicology analysis is complete." The team proceeded through the corridor toward the bridge, weapons ready, sensors active. The abandoned vessel carried an atmosphere of suspended animation, as though its crew had simply stepped away momentarily, rather than disappeared without explanation. "The main systems are intact," the security officer noted upon reaching the bridge, examining a console. "Power reserves at 70%. They didn't crash or suffer technical failure." "Then where is everyone?" ex-Falcori asked, his scientific detachment fraying at the edges. Eliza studied the abandoned bridge. Meals half-eaten, equipment left operational, personal effects still at workstations. "They left in a hurry, but not in a panic." "Meaning?" "No signs of struggle, no weapon discharge marks, no blood." She pointed to a particular console. "This officer even took time to put their system in standby, rather than just abandoning it." "A controlled evacuation," the security officer suggested. "Or a willing departure," Eliza countered. "Check the escape pods." The verification took moments. "All accounted for." "They didn't evacuate, they disembarked." The technical officer inserted a data probe into the main system. "Last log entry recorded 7 standard cycles ago. Audio only." With a gesture from the security lead, the recording activated. "The usual energy signature intensifying. Scout Team Alpha requesting permission to investigate surface anomaly. Captain Vextrol approving ground expedition, despite Protocol 7A restrictions. This phenomenon matches nothing in our database. We need direct observation." The log ended abruptly. "They went to the surface," Eliza concluded, "against protocols." "Centaurian military doesn't violate protocols," the security officer objected. "Perhaps they found something compelling enough to justify the exception," Valkyrie suggested. Brutus suddenly froze, ears pivoting toward the corridor leading deeper into the vessel. A low, warning rumble emanated from his chest, a sound Eliza recognized immediately. "Something's here," she whispered. The security team raised weapons, forming a defensive perimeter around the specialists. Brutus moved to Eliza's side, body coiled with potential energy. "Movement detected," announced the security lead. "Approaching from the crew quarters." Eliza placed a restraining hand on Brutus's suit. "Hold!" she commanded. To the security team, "Don't fire unless I give the word." The corridor remained empty for 1 beat, then 2, until a figure emerged from the shadows. Not Centaurian, not any council species. Bipedal, 4 arms, exoskeleton, similar to insectoid species, but with mammalian characteristics evident in the face and limb structure. A genetic chimera, or an evolutionary path none of them had encountered before. "Greetings," the creature said in perfect Coalition standard. "We've been expecting you." Weapons remained trained on the newcomer, but confusion rippled through the security team. "Identify yourself," demanded the security lead. "By authority of the Centaurian Defense Coalition." The creature's compound eyes reflected the emergency lighting in prismatic patterns. "Your weapons are unnecessary. Had we intended harm, you would not have reached the bridge." "That doesn't answer the question," Eliza said, stepping forward. Brutus moved with her, their synchronized movement drawing the creature's attention. "Fascinating," it observed. The bonding behaviors remain consistent despite environmental adaptations. The being turned its gaze back to Eliza. "You brought your companion despite obvious logistical challenges." "Just as we predicted." Commander Thnox's voice crackled through the comm system. "Dr. Winter, retreat immediately. This constitutes a first contact scenario with an unclassified species." The creature tilted its head. "Not first contact, Commander. We have already established communication with your previous teams." "Where are they?" Inex Volcori asked, recording devices whirring. "Safe. Engaged in mutual knowledge exchange." "You abducted Coalition personnel," the security lead accused. "We extended an invitation," the creature corrected. "One they chose to accept after understanding our purpose." Eliza studied the being before her, its hybridized form suggesting genetic material from multiple Earth species combined with exoplanet biology. Recognition flickered at the edge of her consciousness. "Who are you?" she asked. "We are the Amalgam," the creature replied, "and we would very much like to speak with the human." All eyes shifted to Eliza. "How do you know what I am?" she asked. The creature's mandibles arranged themselves into what might have been a smile. "We know humans well. After all, we were made by them." "Made?" Eliza repeated, the word hanging between them like an undetonated explosive. "As in created?" "Engineered would be more precise," replied the Amalgam representative, "though we have evolved considerably since our initial design parameters." Commander Thok's voice grew sharper through the comm. "Security team, extract your specialists immediately. This situation has escalated beyond reconnaissance parameters." The Amalgam turned toward the nearest communication panel. "Commander Thnox, your concern is understandable but unnecessary. We harbor no hostile intent toward the Coalition or its representatives. You've detained 2 Coalition teams without authorization," Thnox replied, audible tension in his voice. "They remain by choice. They discovered truth that altered their perspective." "What truth?" Eliza asked. The Amalgam's compound eyes shifted back to her. "The truth about humanity's actual history among the stars. A history the Council has never known, or chosen not to acknowledge." Brutus nudged against Eliza's leg, a familiar signal. The tiger sensed no immediate threat from this creature despite its alien nature. Throughout their years together, she had learned to trust his instincts above sophisticated technology or diplomatic protocols. "Explain," she said simply. "Not here," the Amalgam replied. What we offer requires demonstration, not mere description. You must see for yourself what exists beyond the Coalition's limited understanding. Dr. Winter, the security lead, warned. This clearly violates extraction protocols. Valkyrie's exoskeleton flickered with a subtle biochemical glow, excitement overcoming caution. This represents an unprecedented xenological discovery. The potential knowledge value alone justifies further investigation. The potential security risk outweighs academic curiosity, countered the security officer. Eliza considered their positions, then turned to the amalgam. You claim to have been created by humans, yet Council records show no human genetic engineering projects of this magnitude. The Council knows only what humans permit them to know, the creature replied. Official records rarely capture complete truth, especially concerning species as strategically minded as yours. A disturbing possibility formed in Eliza's mind. When were you created? By your chronology, approximately 300 years ago, during what your historians call the genetic renaissance. Valkyrie's recording devices whirred frantically. That's impossible. Humans only achieved interstellar travel 170 years ago. According to official records, the creature agreed. Reality often contains more complexity than history acknowledges. The security team exchanged uneasy glances. Even Thanox had fallen silent on the communication channel. Where are you taking us if we agree? Eliza asked. To synthesis, the amalgam replied. Our home. The place where multiple evolutionary paths converge in harmony rather than competition. Where your previous teams currently reside. Commander? The security lead inquired through the comm. Donatz's response came after a pregnant pause. Protocol dictates immediate withdrawal and quarantine procedures. But, Eliza prompted, hearing the unspoken continuation. But we came to recover our people, he admitted reluctantly. And to understand what happened. Neither objective has been achieved. The amalgam's mandibles shifted in what might have been appreciation. A rational assessment, Commander. May I suggest a compromise? Send a limited delegation with appropriate security measures. Maintain communication links. Establish parameters for withdrawal if desired. Eliza stepped forward before Flonk could respond. I'll go. With Brutus. Absolutely not, the commander objected. Not without security personnel. Security officer, Eliza countered. And ex-Valkyrie, if he's willing. The Valkyne's crystalline structure almost vibrated with anticipation. I would consider it a professional obligation to document this encounter. The amalgam considered. Acceptable terms. Dr. Winter? The Nox voice hardened. This exceeds your authority. He respect, Commander, she replied. You brought me because conventional approaches failed. This is what humans do. We adapt to unprecedented situations. By walking into potential traps. By recognizing when old rules no longer apply. She glanced down at Brutus, 700 pounds of apex predator who had chosen partnership over predation. Sometimes the greatest discoveries require abandoning established protocols. Silence stretched across the communication channel. 4 hours, the Nox finally declared. Continuous communication. Security officer maintains command authority to extract the team at any sign of hostility. Understood, Eliza acknowledged. The amalgam gestured toward a corridor leading deeper into the ship. This way, we've established a transition point in what was once the cargo bay. As they followed their unusual guide, Valkyrie moved closer to Eliza. I've been studying human behavior for 16 cycles, he whispered. Yet nothing in my research prepared me for this level of adaptive response to unknown variables. What do you mean? Most species require established protocols when facing uncertainty. You appear to embrace it. Eliza smiled behind her helmet. When you evolve on a planet that tries to kill you in a new way every day, you learn that survival often means writing new rules on the fly, and trusting creatures that should, by all evolutionary logic, consider you prey, he added, glancing at Brutus. The universe is rarely as binary as prey versus predator, she replied. Most relationships exist in the ambiguous space between. They reached what had once been the cargo bay. The space had been transformed, walls removed, structure reconfigured into what appeared to be a transition chamber. Geometric patterns covered surfaces that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. Equipment of unknown design hummed with energy that registered on none of their scanning devices. Our settlement exists in a pocket dimension adjacent to conventional space, the creature explained. A technology developed from principles your earliest quantum physicists theorized, but never implemented. The security officer raised a hand. Hold position. This technology violates Council Mandate 485B, prohibiting dimensional manipulation beyond established parameters. Another example of rules created by those who fear what they don't understand, the amalgam observed. Your choice remains open. Return to your vessel if you prefer comfort over knowledge. Eliza met the creature's compound gaze. How does it work? Reality is more malleable than Council science acknowledges. We don't break dimensional barriers, we simply recognize they were never solid to begin with. Brutus pressed against Eliza's leg, alert but calm. Throughout their years together, she had learned to trust his instincts above sophisticated technology or diplomatic protocols. He stepped forward. Show us. The chamber activated. Reality folded, twisted, reconfigured itself around them in ways that defied conventional physics. For a heartbeat that stretched into eternity, Eliza felt her consciousness existing simultaneously across multiple potential states of being. Then stability returned, and they stood in what could only be described as a biological metropolis, unlike anything recorded in Council archives. Structures of living tissue, merged with advanced technology, pulsing with internal light. Thousands of amalgam moved through spaces designed for bodies unlike any Council species. And among them, unmistakably, walked Centaurians. Not captives but participants, engaged in what appeared to be scientific and cultural exchange. Welcome to Synthesis, the amalgam announced, the first truly cooperative multi-species civilization in this galaxy. NX Valkyrie's recording devices struggled to process the sensory information flooding their circuits. The security officer maintained a professional stance, though the faint tremor in his tentacles betrayed his astonishment. Brutus, meanwhile, surveyed their new surroundings with the casual acceptance that made Earth predators so uniquely adaptable, as though pocket dimensions and biological architecture were simply new territories to explore, rather than fundamental violations of understood reality. Now, said the amalgam, we can begin to discuss what humanity has been hiding from the Council for centuries. We were made by them. The amalgam's words hung in the air as Eliza surveyed Synthesis, a biological metropolis where living architecture pulsed with internal luminescence and Centaurians moved freely among hybrid beings that shouldn't exist according to Council records. When? Eliza demanded. 3 centuries ago, replied the amalgam, during what your historians call the genetic renaissance. NX Valkyrie's recording devices whirred frantically. Impossible. Humans achieved interstellar travel only 170 years ago. According to official records, the creature agreed. History is written by those who control information. A human woman approached through the crowd, her appearance jarringly normal amidst the biological architecture. Dr. Winter, welcome to humanity's oldest secret. I'm Dr. Morgan Chen, descendant of the original Genesis Project team. Genesis Project? The first human genetic engineering program designed for space colonization, Dr. Chen explained. While Earth governments publicly restricted genetic modification, private initiatives operated beyond orbital jurisdiction. My ancestors created the amalgam as an experiment in adaptive cross-species development. The security officer bristled. This violates dozens of council charters. Charters established after humans joined the galactic community, Dr. Chen countered. When membership was offered, Earth authorities decided certain achievements would complicate diplomatic relations. You're claiming humans had advanced genetic engineering centuries before contact, Eliza summarized, and hid this fact to gain strategic advantage. The Council fears what humans might become, the amalgam observed. Imagine their reaction to learning what humans already were. Brutus padded forward, examining the biological structures with predatory curiosity. The amalgam watched him with evident fascination. Most species separate themselves from evolutionary threats, the creature noted. Humans transform threats into allies. That perspective defines your relationship with the universe. And why we brought you here. The coalition teams, invited to witness what we've built. Most chose to stay. The opportunity to study an entirely new civilization was too compelling to refuse. A Centaurian officer approached. Dr. Winter, we aren't prisoners. We're researchers documenting the most significant xenological discovery in centuries. Eliza studied the structured chaos around her, the impossible merger of biology and technology, the coexistence of species that should have no evolutionary commonality. You want me to keep your secret, she realized. We want you to understand what humanity truly is, Dr. Shani corrected. The Coalition believes Earth is a death world that somehow produced cooperative rather than conquering beings. They never questioned this contradiction because it comforted them. The truth is more complex, the amalgam added. Humans aren't exceptional, despite evolving on a death world. They're exceptional because of it. They learned to turn predators into protectors. Eliza glanced down at Brutus, 700 pounds of apex predator who chose to sleep at her door. The galaxy believes humans abandoned their predatory nature, the amalgam concluded. The reality? They simply channeled it more effectively than any species before them. Next Valkyrie stepped forward. If true, humanity has violated fundamental council agreements. Catastrophic if revealed carelessly, Dr. Chen acknowledged, but managed properly this knowledge could transform interspecies relations. She turned to Eliza. The question is, are you capable of seeing beyond council propaganda to what your species actually achieved? Eliza felt Brutus press against her leg, solid and real, amid revelations that threatened to unravel humanity's place among the stars. Show me everything, she decided. No restrictions. 3 days later, standing on an observation platform overlooking Synthesis, Eliza made her choice. Beside her, Brutus lounged with the casual acceptance that made Earth predators so uniquely adaptable. Evolution doesn't reward the strongest or most intelligent, she told Dr. Chen, running her hand through Brutus's fur. It rewards those who forge the most unlikely alliances. Across 16 galaxies, evolutionary biologists still argued about what kind of hellscape must have forged humans into creatures who looked at apex predators and thought, I will heal this and make it my companion. None had yet considered the more disturbing possibility that perhaps humans weren't the prey who eventually became predators. Perhaps they were the predators who learned the ultimate camouflage was appearing to be prey.